Please welcome tonight's visibility honoree, Clark Moore.
Thank you. I didn't get to see that video. I didn't realize it was going to be so heavy on the sing-off. That was a very colorful time of my life, I'll say. Thank you for that introduction, Jose, and thank you to the Human Rights Campaign for honoring me with your Visibility Award. I am humbled and deeply grateful to be recognized by an organization that does such incredible work. Your dedication to safeguarding our community through legislation is what ensures our voices continue to be heard in a time when we are seeing our basic inalienable rights systematically eroded. And it is through your work that we are able to show that queerness is an integral part of the American identity. Accepting this award brings up some complex emotions for me, as it is in some ways completely antithetical to my Southern upbringing, where I was taught humility above all else, and yet somehow I always knew I was destined to receive an award just for existing. So, thank you, and you're welcome. It is not lost on me that my visibility is a privilege. There are many places in the world and in this country where being visible can have extreme social, legal, and even fatal ramifications. I have to therefore acknowledge that I am the product of a deeply loving family and many supportive communities that encouraged my journey of self-exploration and always told me I could achieve anything if I worked hard enough. My parents made space for me to explore my interest in the arts, which went hand in hand with discovering my identity. That's not to say that theater camp made me gay, necessarily. But having the freedom to explore creative expression without judgment allowed me to tap into innate parts of myself that might have stayed hidden much longer had they been immediately associated with shame rather than with my unique beauty. Even with all that support, though, it still wasn't easy for me. Much like my character in Love, Simon, I came out at a very young age. Unlike Simon, I was never able to successfully hide who I was. My classmates teased me for being gay before I even really knew what that meant. In elementary and middle school, my visibility felt more like a liability, and I used humor and performance to deflect and preempt the bullying. But when thinking about visibility and the Human Rights Campaign, I immediately thought of that iconic logo, the glowing golden equal sign that shines as a beacon saying, "You're accepted here, you're safe here. This is your community." It's a small symbol, but it can go a long way in affirming support for someone who needs it. And it's an easy way of letting someone know they're not alone. And I thought about all the times in my life that I've seen symbols like that equal sign on a friend's laptop, or a small rainbow flag on my favorite professor's office door, and immediately let out a sigh of relief. I thought of one of my out gay teachers in high school, and I went to a very liberal school in Atlanta, so I was lucky to have multiple. But Eddie Hernandez had that bright yellow equal sign right there on his desk. And when my history course required us to write a paper about a pivotal moment that we believed to be a turning point in 20th century American history, he helped me. Because while our library had many resources on the world wars, some resources on the Black civil rights movement, they didn't have much on my topic, which was the Stonewall riots. So even though Eddie taught my Intro to Italian course, he went home, did some Googling. I don't know, for all I know, he accessed the archives of a local university. I mean, he was very committed. But he came back the next day with a huge stack of papers to help me fill in the gaps. He went above and beyond to educate me on our shared history. And I thought about the time my mom and I were driving through the Carolinas on our way home from visiting colleges, and I commented to her that there might be a lesbian in the lane next to us, in the South, no less. And she asked me how I knew, and I pointed to that gold equal sign on the side of that Subaru. And I said, it's a safe bet. At that time, I had so few representations of gay adults with full lives that it was hard for me to imagine a future in which my queer identity was just one of many special parts of who I am. That's why our visibility is so important. Our self-love and self-acceptance create a blueprint for those who are struggling. In the time since the film was released, I've been told that Love, Simon acted as a handbook for many parents who were learning how to love their out LGBTQ children in the way they needed. I've received countless messages from people who told me that Love, Simon was the first time they saw themselves represented on screen, that our story got them through a difficult time managing their identity, and in some cases, it provided hope to people who were considering or practicing self-harm. And that's the power of representation. Unfortunately, the entertainment industry is a slow-turning ship. I've known I wanted to be an actor since I was 7 years old. In fact, I signed with my very first agent that first week of performing arts camp. Throughout my childhood, my parents took me to audition after audition, sometimes even driving me across state lines for callbacks, but the opportunities were very limited. And even in this time of heightened awareness around the importance of diversity and inclusivity and the call for new, unique stories, there are fewer roadmaps, fewer spaces, fewer people for queer youth of color to point to and say, I want to be like them. Which reminds me of a James Baldwin quote that I think about regularly. He said, "The space in which I'll fit will not exist until I make it." This is why we should all strive to be visible and continue to tell our stories from our perspectives in our voices to show the wide range of queer experiences and identities. But of course, we can't do it alone because opportunities don't just appear, they are created by decision makers. And this applies to marginalized people across industries, which is why it is so important to have LGBTQ people in leadership roles, using their privilege to create new opportunities for the underrepresented. Like our fantastic director, Greg Berlanti, did by making space for me in Love, Simon, and like Governor Polis, whose visibility provides a fantastic template for LGBTQ youth in this state to consider public service and a career in politics as a legitimate option. This award inspires me to keep having the difficult conversations and to continue the fight for diversity and inclusivity. In my life, I've frequently found myself as the only one in the room. From growing up in predominantly white environments, going to college in New Hampshire, which is my own fault, I mean, I chose it. and working in tech as the only Black person on an international team of 50. I know firsthand how isolating that can be. But I encourage you to find small moments in your daily life in which your visibility can help create opportunities for someone else, even if it's just displaying that HRC logo or a rainbow flag. Because I believe, as the proud son of a Marine, a proud, gay, Black Southerner, that it is not only our diversity, but our willingness to evolve that makes America so great. Our Constitution begins by acknowledging the desire to form, quote, a more perfect union. It is written into the bedrock of this republic that we should always be striving to do better, to be better. We were not all taken into consideration when those early documents were written. The many peoples who already existed here weren't taken into consideration when those documents were written. But our founding fathers left the door open for future generations to decide what works for us. I am not on the fringe of this society. And to borrow from Miss Janelle Monáe, I am not America's nightmare. I am the American dream. Thank you.